Hello, my name is Arjun Vishwanathan, and I welcome you to yet another episode of Tipping Point Dialogues on Transformation. Uh, my guest today is somebody very, very special. Please put your hands together to welcome Sarika Panchhi, who's a trailblazing entrepreneur who's seamlessly navigating the worlds of advertising and wellness products with two organizations that she's founded: advertising by virtue of word of mouth media and wellness products by virtue of Javisa Wellness. Sarika's unwavering dedication and innovative prowess have carved her a niche as a formidable leader in these domains. Having known her, I'm also observant that beyond her professional triumphs, Sarika embodies resilience as a single mother, harmonizing the demands of entrepreneurship with nurturing her son. Remarkably, she also extends her caring nature as a devoted caregiver to her parents, pretty much epitomizing the art of balancing personal responsibilities with professional excellence. Something that's always struck me about Sarika is her multifaceted journey has not only inspired, but also stands as a testament to the profound impact of determination, compassion, and perseverance in shaping success amidst life's many, many responsibilities. On that note, Sarika Panchhi, welcome to Tipping Point. I'm delighted that you're with us today.
Thank you so much, Arjun. I have to start by saying that you should also become a writer. I've known you as a friend, I know you as a professional, but I can see another profession coming up for you. Thank
Thank you.
you. Honored and delighted to be here.
Wonderful. Sarika, we've got an interesting 35, 40 minutes ahead, and I intend to make the most of it. So I'm directly going to jump into it. In many ways, this is your second innings in life, isn't it? In both personally as well as professionally. Uh, Now, something that's always struck me is your move first to advertising with word of mouth, which you co founded along with your brother and Jimmy, of course. And then at a later point, which is about a couple of years back, to move into the whole concept of wellness. Now, how does that kind of navigate itself?
So, when I left the corporate world, I used to be with IBM Global Services in Mumbai, and I was heading part of operations there. 8 years back, my brother Vineet put an emotional gun to my head, and he pulled me back into Dehradun. So that transition was thanks to my connect with my brother and everything, and then we started, of course, building word of mouth media. So वो वाली journey बहुत different थी because one, I was coming from corporate and I was becoming an entrepreneur. I was understanding this world. I was trying to see from Mumbai to Dehradun. So there were multiple transitions that happened. But my journey in the last 3.5 years with Jivisa has been slightly more different, slightly more advanced. With word of mouth, while we were building it and we built it to a very good mid-sized agency based in Dehradun, we were doing fantastic work for some of the best brands, sitting right here out of Dehradun,
Yes.
servicing people like IBM, Microsoft, Ford, name it, and we were servicing them out of here. But I did feel somewhere that I was running with my brother's dream. He's the creative guy. I was heading off business and strategy while he was heading the creative bit. So while that was very satisfying, I think somewhere at a personal level, I wanted to do something which had my stamp on it, which also, had a reflection of who I was.
Indeed.
So yeah, so initially, बहुत मजा आया word of mouth के साथ, but at some point I went to my brother and said, "Bhai, I've built it. I think this is the best I could have done. I think I need to start doing something of my own," and that was already going on. The conversations, the dialogues were already going on, and that's when pandemic happened. So it
Of course.
kind of coincided with the entire world changing, and all of us were anyway kind of doing a reset in our professional lives, in our personal lives. And it gave us an opportunity to say, well, the world needs to look at wellness. The one thing that pandemic taught us was that there is nothing more important than your own health, your mental health, your physical health, and that comes by looking within and not looking without, outside of yourself for solutions.
Of course. Of course.
तो आई थिंक ये सारी चीजें पैरेलली चल रही थी. My own personal journey to do something of my own, the world changing, the world looking at wellness a little more seriously, and they all kind of converged, and Jivisa came out of that.
So
So
what
that's how
exactly,
Jivisa transition.
and what
Sorry.
exactly does Jivisa do for the benefit of the larger audience?
Sure. So Jivisa, we are building as a holistic wellness brand, and I emphasize on the word holistic because there are multiple brands currently doing one or more than one verticals within the entire spectrum of wellness. Wellness, I continue to say, is not unidimensional. Wellness is not about one cup of tea I have in the morning, one session of yoga I do in the morning, a book I read here, or whatever. It's a lifestyle. It's how you lead your life. It's how you think, the conversations that you have, the people that you sit with, the books you're reading, how you're developing your mind. It's a whole lot of that philosophy. And we realized that one, moving into Dehradun, kuch transition naturally ho gaya tha. We had started to lead a very, very different kind of life.
Of course.
Learning from that, I realized that all of that can be incorporated into a brand. So, what does Jivisa do? It's a holistic wellness brand. We have one vertical which is hardcore products. We bring out natural products which are completely naturally sourced, hoping to give you a solution, a natural solution to lifestyle problems. But we are also parallelly building mental wellness verticals. We are also parallelly looking at all other health issues to see how to also bring sexual health into it, men's health into it, women's health into it. How do tomorrow we also, create a set of music, which adds to the entire spectrum? How do we also tie in with other consultants, whether they are right nutritionists or, counselors or various other people working in the wellness space, to bring all of them under the umbrella of Jivisa. So that's what we are trying to build Jivisa on.
No, but it's very interesting, isn't it? And now that you articulate it in the manner that you did, uh, when you started Jivisa, wellness was perhaps something that was on top of your mind for sure. But correct me if I'm wrong, with no perhaps formal education within the wellness space. Now, in that kind
Yeah.
of a scenario, couple of this is a two-parter really. How scary was it? For sure. And
Yeah.
secondly, how did you kind of put all of this together to be able to look at the physical side of wellness, the mental side of wellness, and perhaps the psychological and other sides of wellness?
So I think, and this is not the first time I've shifted gears in industry, Arjun. I've done that at least 3, 4 times in the past. I started as a cabin crew 25 years back.
Oh,
I ended my career, or I ended my corporate career 8 years back, heading operations for a very, very big contact center in India, which is hardcore technology, ITS, right? So from that to that transition needed multiple course corrections on the way, needed multiple upskilling, trainings, understanding a new industry, etc. From that to branding and advertising meant that every new client that you work with, if we were working for BMW, we needed to understand the auto industry. If we were working for a travel company or hospitality, we needed to understand that. None of that came with a formal background. I think the only formal education background that has helped is, the MBAs that I've done. And I've done an executive and one from Nursing Munji and an executive from ISB. वो आपको इतना सिखा देता है कि आप अपना कॉमन सेंस कैसे अप्लाई करो और किसी नई इंडस्ट्री के बारे में कैसे सीखो.
of
Once
course.
you've cracked that, I don't really think you need to, at least as you grow as a leader of any industry, I don't think you really need to know the technicalities. Somebody in the team needs to know that. So, for example, within our team, while Snehi, who's my young co founder, she and I are continuously upskilling, learning, understanding what's happening in the wellness industry. There are two people dedicated only on the technical aspect of it. So, if you are trying to get into aromas, she's taking a training, Kehkasha from our team, into the technicalities of aroma. We will give her our feedback after using an aroma. She will understand कि उसमें herb कौन सा था, what are the benefits, etc. So it doesn't really scare you because once you know how to apply common sense and intelligence to any industry, I think you can crack it. Um, and I guess that's how you prepare. You just continue to go back, learn, read more, understand, experiment on yourself, say I like it, I don't like it, and then bring whatever is the best into the organization.
And both, Sarika, both when you were kind of setting up word of mouth with Vineet and Jimmy, and of course now with Jivisa Wellness. And I ask this also to serve as prescriptive guidance for an emerging set of folks, both men and women, who want to start out with something that's as small as a dream or a small vision, to be able to carve and create and craft something that could become the purpose of their lives. In that sense, what are some of the uh, biggest challenges that you faced at the beginning or during the process, and how did you address that?
Uh, so I will try and bring two perspectives. One is
Of
if you're a fresher, one is if you're an experienced professional already doing something but want to carve out and get into this journey. If you're already working and you've spent 10 years, 15 years with a corporate, the move will be very, very different because now you have a lot of experience under your belt. The only thing you need to really figure out is what is the industry that you're getting into? Have you done your due diligence? Are your finances sorted? Because when you're somebody who's been working, there is a paycheck at the end of the month, and somebody else is responsible for getting you the money. That
indeed
pressure
so.
is not yours. Yeah, when you are an entrepreneur, that pressure also is yours along with everything else, the sales, the HR, the operations, everything is a hat you're wearing. So वो वाला transition थोड़ा सा अलग होता है. If you have really done your groundwork in terms of research, your due diligence, and your finances, then I think it's a great space. So you really equip yourself well with the industry intelligence, the financial intelligence, and the business plan. That is if you're doing that transition. If you're a complete fresher, and I meet a lot of college students, and they come up with great ideas, and they say, "How do we do this?" I feel the risk is much lesser than somebody who's done 20 years of corporate because आपकी liabilities इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं होती. Your parents are
Indeed.
still backing you. What's the worst that will happen? You will try it for 2-3 years in your career that you're starting, which will pan the next 40 years. It's a very small percentage. Then I would just say that just take the leap of faith. And, if you really, really convinced about your idea, just go after it. The difference between a successful entrepreneur and an unsuccessful entrepreneur is execution. 95% is execution, 5% is idea. Anybody can come up with any number of ideas on PPTs, in meetings, in conversations over cocktails, but that will not make you a success. The success will come from how well have you executed it. So keep that extremely watertight. अगर आपका execution plan अच्छा है, तो I think बहुत सारे challenges mitigate हो जाएंगे. That's what I would like to give to anybody who's trying to
No, absolutely.
start.
Because I think something that's very, very important today is for people to stand up for each other and instill in them
Yeah.
the confidence and the ability to believe in following your dreams. Which is why I think it's very, very important for me to also ask you about your support system. How did that kind of pan out? Who did you rely and fall back on the most at some of the critical junctures, right at word of mouth, of course, and with Jivisa, when the day looked gray and bleak? Uh, where do you then, and how would you uh, prescribe to others how to continue chugging along? It's like one of my bosses once told me, and he said, mate, whatever shit happens, you have to wake up the next morning, shave, put on your best clothes, and still show up. How do you
Yes.
continue doing that?
तो अर्जुन, मुझे ऐसा लगता है ये बहुत ज्यादा पर्सनल मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ plays a very, very important role here. Um, Thankfully, I have a great support system, both personally, professionally. The team at Jivisa and the erstwhile team that I had with Word of Mouth, both are fantastic teams. Like, I couldn't have been prouder than I am of them. But there are days, like you said, that as a leader, as somebody who's holding the flag and running ahead of them, you can't even go to them and say, "Look, I don't have the money to give you tomorrow," or "This big project was supposed to come and it just got cancelled, and I don't have the
Yes.
heart to tell you or give you the information." Or I'm really struggling on my personal side. There's this huge problem I'm dealing with, but I need to show up on the Monday morning call and show all smiling and pass on that energy because you know that the moment you'll I mean, whatever energy you bring, you will kind of pass it on. So there are those days too. What I have learned is one, have a great set of friends and confidants, whoever that is. Sometimes it could be family, sometimes it could be friends, it could be your companion and partner, whoever that is. But have these people that you can go to and be completely vulnerable with, because that does give you a lot of strength. But finally, the decision, the decision to wake up the next day, the decision to say कि यार ये दो decisions लेने थे मुझे नहीं पता, that will still fall back on you. They will still not be, they will probably be able to hold your hand and say, look, I know you're having a bad day. Let me come and hear you out. But the decision still has to be yours. I do feel that a lot of people shy away from that because the responsibility of that decision also lies on you, and it's
Indeed.
very easy to shirk that and say,
Yes.
मुझे इसका decision नहीं लेना क्योंकि इसकी responsibility कौन लेगा? That as a leader, even if you're a family leader, even if you're just leading your family, that you can't shirk away. So that you have to continuously tell yourself कि okay, I will go and speak to 3 people, but finally मुझे को कल, like you just said, that I only have to wake up the next day and wear my best shoes and clothes and smile on the call to my team, to my son, to my
Indeed.
family, no matter how shitty I'm feeling inside. So I think it's a combination of people around you and your internal strength. Work on your relationships, but please continue to work on yourself, because finally that's the one that will give you the maximum boost on your really gray cloudy days.
No, I couldn't agree more with you because, and while you were speaking, I was just thinking about it. And I started off by saying this is your second innings. It's also obviously your second act, but it's also a balancing act, isn't it? In many, many ways. And because uh, my question to you really is uh, yours is a very inspiring story and narrative by itself. Is how do you manage to juggle the challenges of being an entrepreneur, uh, caregiver to your parents, as well as a single mom?
And multiple other roles, Arjun,
Of
by the way.
course,
See, I
multiple
think
others.
I think all of us play those roles. We just don't realize it. Uh, you are a daughter, a mother, a leader, a partner, and all of that on the same day, personally, professionally. I think the only difference is that on a particular day, what is more important that day? For example, my son just turned 18, so his college transition was happening, which means that the last 6 months was a lot of back and forth and going and visiting multiple colleges, understanding, making mistakes, trying something, not understanding it, as a parent trying to tell your son that look, I think this is what you need to do, him not understanding. So there was that thread going on. My mother for the last 1.5 years was in and out of hospital, and Bhai and I were continuously in hospital and back, and both of us decided that what, one of us will travel, the other will stay in Dehradun. And thankfully, touchwood, in the last 3 months she's suddenly recovered and recouped, but that did take a lot of her mind space for that time. And then there is work. So I realized that on any day, उस वक्त की, उस दिन की क्या प्रायोरिटी होती है, that takes over. So if there is hospital, then there is hospital, there is nothing
There's
else more
nothing
important
else.
on that day. Yeah, and everything else has to be managed on phone, but there is a big presentation to be made the next day. Then you will figure out your entire support system to say, can you guys manage the hospital, because I have to run and do this presentation. And it is so surprising that you asked this. There was this one time about sometime last year when both Bhai and I were traveling. And within a span of 10 hours, first my mom was hospitalized and dad was hospitalized. And all our friends in Dehradun got together. They first hospitalized mom, then hospitalized dad. And of course, Vineet was in Kerala, I was in Jodhpur. Both of us couldn't connect back to Dehradun. And it took us one night to reach back. And next day morning, when I reached back and they were both fine, the only thing I was thinking was thank God for the friends and family that we have, because it was this freak accident and we had no clue कि वो लोग कब उठा के mom dad को विस्क करके ले भी गए, hospitalized भी हो गया, सब कुछ हो गया. By the time we could reach back, they were both fine. So there are these days that happen and you just keep thinking, okay, aaj ki priority kya hai, and this is what I will manage and deprioritize something else, because you can't let any of the balls in the air kind of drop, right? So you have to keep juggling all of them and make sure that all of them are in the air and you take your eyes off and one of them falls. So
Of
it's a
course, of course.
continuous juggling. Yeah.
So Sarika, to now focus a little bit on your, I've of course met Arav. He's a brilliant, wonderful boy. Um, how did life as a single parent evolve for you? What were things that you learned along the way? And I ask this in a fairly considered manner, Sarika, because in many ways, the concept of the institution of wedlock and marriage really is for balanced upbringing for a child from both the father and the mother. But in your case, Now having the benefit of seeing Arav have grown into such a brilliant boy, I want to understand your navigation of a journey that was mostly singular rather than being plural.
Actually, I wouldn't call it singular, Arjun. I called it multiple.
Multiple, actually.
I was 1.5 when I moved back with my parents, and my parents completely co-parented Arab with me. Initially, मुझे लगता था हम 3 लोग co-parent कर रहे हैं, and there has not been a single day that I had to think, oh my God, uh, has he eaten, or is he fine, or is he secure? Because they were always around. But not just them. As they say that it takes a village to raise a child,
To raise a
I
child.
have experienced it in all senses. There are people in my life who've been very, very close to Arab, and I will give all of those guys complete credit in parenting Arab thoda sa ya thoda zyada, but they've been very, very big influences in his life. So, whenever his homework would come, for example, my Masi and uncle who stayed very close to my house, between my dad and my uncle and me, the syllabus would immediately get distributed because I would take social sciences and English, my dad would take maths and Hindi, and my uncle would take computer sciences and various other things. So ऐसे छोटे छोटे roles बहुत सारे लोग आपकी जिंदगी में play करते हैं. It's just that we've never felt the gratitude to them, or we've never acknowledged them, and we've never realized how important these people have been in our lives. And I've been thankful for everybody who has had a single conversation with him, has had multiple conversations with him, because I think all of those experiences have helped him build himself into who he has become today. So when he turned 16, Vineet, my brother, bought him a non-geared scooter. But along with that, he also said, you can't ride without helmets, you can't ride without this, you will first get your driving license, only then are you allowed to do this. So, in his own way, he's been a guardian to him. May not have been a father, but how does that matter? Likewise for some of our other friends. तो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत सारे लोगों की एक community बन जाती है, and everybody then helps you raise a child and become what he has become, and I'm very happy with the way he's kind of grown.
No, of course,
I've
I
never
couldn't.
felt yeah,
And
sorry.
knowing both you and Aram now, I also know that he shares a very, very close emotional bond with you.
Yeah.
So that's of course very, very nice to see. But Sarika, let me also understand from you, and I look to you to be able to articulate this from the point of view of infusing and inspiring perhaps others, men and women, uh, who may want to take the decision and execute the decision of stepping out uh, and forging a life for themselves. In that sense, how difficult was it for you, or how scary was it? Of course, you already said that you continue to have a great support system. Uh, but this was, of course, and I know for a fact that this was almost about 17 years back, when life and times were very, very different from what they are today. So, in that sense, how was your journey?
So I'll first try and answer, should you step out, and how difficult is the decision to step out? I see a lot of people stay back in toxic, or if not necessarily toxic, but not the most compatible relationships, because they decide that socially galat hai, financially galat
Of
hai,
course.
support system nahi hai, various other reasons. और कभी कभी हिम्मत ही नहीं हो पाती, they're just not ready to take the leap of faith. I feel that both the journeys are difficult. So it's not as if raising Arab single-handedly and going through everything that was happening outside was any easier. But I know that had I stayed back in the marriage, it would have been even that wouldn't have been easier at all. So very often when a lot of women reach out to me today and say, what do you suggest? I always say that choose your difficulties. दोनों ही बहुत difficult हैं, but at least there I've chosen the difficulty I want to face. There I'm being forced to stay back
I know.
and become this person I'm not happy becoming. यहाँ पे भी difficulty है, वहाँ पे भी है, but I'm happy with this difficulty. Arjun, I can't tell you that after I left my marriage, we went through a bankruptcy as a family. I was fighting a very, very bitter divorce. Also was the time that because I was a cabin crew and I joined the airline industry, I realized that I needed to upskill myself. So I was also going through an MBA, which means I was working 5 days, 2 days I was in college for the next 2 years, and I was only 1.5. So I, for good 7 years, had this phase where I thought I was fighting a battle on all fronts of my life,
So true.
financially,
So true.
socially, divorce, all of that. But despite the most difficult times, I was happier. So because this was a difficulty I chose. Had I stayed back in the marriage, I think I would have died as a person, because my soul would have died. So which is easier? Neither is easier. But this one is something I chose and I decided to go and fight it. Had I stayed back, I would have not been able to do it. And that's what I tell everybody, that can you figure out a way to do it, because then you will get the mental strength and the strength within to fight it out. Once you make up that mind, then I think it's way easier. Staying back or leaving, it's a trade-off. But I do feel that this was a way happier, way nicer space. My dad did once tell me, when I was still contemplating कि निकलना है कि नहीं निकलना है, that between two unhappy parents and one happy parent is a better
Parent
choice,
is.
and that's a choice I made.
And did it affect Arav when he was growing up to a certain degree at all? That um, socially, that's my question.
I think it affects them as much as you decide
You
to
are.
let it. Yes. So thankfully, I come from a family which is extremely open, very progressive, which means that all conversations in our house are had very, very openly, extremely openly. Like Arav has known everything about everything. When he wanted to visit his father, he went and visited. For some time, he got uncomfortable. He stopped visiting. Now he's again comfortable. So he started visiting again. Completely his choice. Socially, was it difficult? I don't think so, because at home we didn't make it awkward for him. At home we kind of normalized it for him, and there were other kids around that. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि कोई भी चीज हम अपने दिमाग में बड़ा या छोटा कर देते हैं, and that's how we start reacting to the external world also. But क्योंकि घर पे normal था, तो उसको हमेशा normal लगा. I did, though, as a single mother, feel guilty about anything that was going wrong with Arab. Till I realized, when I started observing other kids also, that actually बाकी सारे बच्चे भी ऐसे ही हैं यार,
ऐसे ही है.
जैसे अरब है. There is no difference. The difference is in my mind, and the day I realized that, I suspended that also, and from there on, I don't think anything has really mattered.
No, I thank you, because that's very important for me to also understand, is because uh, back in the day, and I quote this incident from somebody I know and I'm very close with, and this particular lady also got separated and then divorced, and was doing extremely well, and was supposed to be posted as a branch manager in one of the larger towns in UP, where her grandparents used to stay.
Right.
And her grandparents actually came to a point where they said and discouraged her from taking up that role, which was actually a promotion of sorts, because they said, in our town, it won't be looked at properly for you to come in as somebody who's divorced or separated. In that sense, did you find Dehradun fairly more advanced and evolved socially back in the day, about 18 years back?
So when I moved back, I was first in Mumbai for 10 years. I moved to Dehradun only 8 years back. मुझे लगता है मुंबई और देहरादून from a how they react to these things are equally backward and equally forward. In fact, there were lots of things in Mumbai I found way more backward than I found that in Dehradun. Just a perspective setting. Everything is finally about how you react to a situation. When I was 13 years old, Arjun, my father, for a span of 10 years, became an alcoholic. And this is when I was growing up in Dehradun, which back then was this small, sleepy town, जहाँ पे सिर्फ services के लोग हुआ करते थे.
Indeed.
And I remember my dad used to be with ONGC, and I went to someone's house who was also in ONGC, and he looked at me, and everybody in Dehradun knew that, at least in our circle and whatever, knew that he's an alcoholic. So this gentleman looks at a 13-year-old girl and says, "Oh, आप Dr. Kamal Nayan की बेटी हैं? अच्छा अच्छा, उनको तो कुछ बीमारी है ना?" I don't know where I got the strength from, and I looked at that person in the eyes and I told him, "नहीं uncle, मेरे dad को कोई बीमारी नहीं है. He's an alcoholic." The moment I said that, the entire shame attached to it, the entire everything attached to it stopped, and the demon that it could have become, at least मेरे दिमाग का वो demon निकल गया. And after that, we've spoken about it. At least I have spoken about it extremely openly. The same thing has applied to my divorce. The same thing has applied to all the relationships that I've had. Every single time, and people react exactly the same whether it is Mumbai or in Dehradun. पढ़े लिखे ओपन दिमाग वाले लोग यहाँ पे भी बहुत अच्छे से रिएक्ट करते हैं. जिन लोगों को ये चीजें नहीं समझ में आती थी वो मुंबई में भी बहुत ज्यादा जज करते थे या they would react very differently. Finally, once you realize that their judgment does not matter, what matters is how you react to
Certainly
something.
not.
I think it stops bothering you, and that's what has happened in this case also.
That was actually very, very interesting and a very powerful articulation that you made. But who've been your role model, Sarika, throughout? Across any
बहुत अलग
sphere of life?
I
Work,
think बहुत अलग अलग लोग रहे हैं. I've not had a single role model, but I know that our father has influenced both Bhai and us,
of
me a
course.
lot, because he's very open and progressive and shamelessly progressive, you know. So that has influenced us without our realizing it. But I do feel that at various stages in life, there've been various people जिनकी कोई एक चीज आपको बहुत अच्छी लगी and you've adapted. And I think that's so there's a khichdi of role models in my mind, which has made me who I've become.
And what are the most valuable lessons that you've learned throughout this journey? Things that will forever stay with you and become the bulwarks or the foundations of who Sarika Panchhi is today.
The first and the foremost, building on the conversation that we had, one, the world really doesn't care. You know, so you have to stop caring about them. क्योंकि आप उनको जितना बड़ा अपने दिमाग में बना देते हैं वो उतना बड़ा बन जाते हैं और हावी हो जाते हैं आप पे. So stop bothering about what the world thinks of you. Even if they judge you, it's okay. It's their stress to carry. That's one. Two, and I'll quote something that a friend of mine said, that who you are and who you're trying to become is directly proportionate to the stress that you carry, or who you are or who you're trying to portray is directly proportionate. तो आप जितना ऑथेंटिसिटी के पास होगे उतना आपका स्ट्रेस लेवल कम हो जाएगा. So be who you are, यार. I think all of us have shades of black, white, and a spectrum of gray in between in all our personalities, and shamelessly just talk about it, let everybody know, क्योंकि आपका वो stress कम हो जाता है. So I think these, you know, staying close to who you are, being authentic, and not giving too much importance to what the world thinks of you have been my two pillars of, I mean, it's the bedrock of how I live my life.
No, I couldn't agree more. And that's very powerful in terms of, I love what you said, which is authenticity in life and in everything that you do in life is so, so important. Sarika, therefore, when you look back at a brilliant life that has been led and the rest of your life that remains ahead of you, what is the impact and the legacy that you hope your life will serve for an entire generation of people who will interact with you, who will read or know about you, and the community by and large?
बहुत बहुत बड़ा है ये.
Indeed, it is.
मुझे मुझे नहीं लगता, मुझे नहीं पता है कि मैं इतनी बड़ी लेगेसी कोई छोड़ के जाने वाली हूँ कि नहीं. But even if I can impact 5 people in my life and tell them to live fearlessly, I think that would be absolutely great. And I know that in my personal life, I have, you know, at least pushed some of the people that I know to say that ये इतना बड़ा जो demon दिमाग में बनाया हुआ है इसको suspend कर दो, go face it, go, you know, go.
And it's okay to be scared, isn't it?
It completely is. In fact, I don't know why we completely don't talk about our vulnerabilities. I think it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry when you feel like crying, because it is. Uh, I think it comes from a space of strength and not from a space of weakness. पहले हमें बोला जाता था कि नहीं आप नहीं हो सकते हो. We would, you know, hide it under the, push it under the carpet, not want to face it. On the contrary, the more raw and vulnerable you are with your emotions, the more the stronger you feel the next day. क्योंकि आपने जाके उसको फेस कर लिया ना, आपने fears को भी कर लिया फेस, आपने shame को भी कर लिया फेस, आपने guilt को भी कर लिया. In one of the workshops that I attended about 4-5 years back, I realized that there was this huge burden of shame that I was carrying. I had wronged somebody. In my mind, I had wronged somebody, and I was carrying the guilt for such a long time. और जब वो workshop हुआ and I openly spoke about it, that I think somewhere I don't want to face it. It is, you know, this thing I've hidden somewhere and shut the door in a closet. When I openly expressed it, is when I started to feel lighter and stronger. And I don't know whether that person thinks I wrong, but in my mind I wronged this person. And in the course of this thing, I forgave myself, and the next day I felt lighter. मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है अगर आप vulnerable हो सकते हो तो nothing like it यार, you will just live freer and happier the next day. So go be vulnerable.
No, fantastic, Sarika, but I do have a view on the clock. Uh, my closing couple of questions to you really is again going back to your entrepreneurial journey. Is what is the advice that you'd like to give so many people out there on how they should even begin something that isn't there and create something out of nothing?
Nothing
All right.
free.
For editing, this is take two. Please edit this particular segment, which was paused. On my count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, Sarika, a couple of the closing questions that I certainly do want to ask you is, what is your guidance, essential guidance, to an emerging or an altogether new generation of folks out there who may be at various junctures and stages and ages of life, who perhaps want to craft something absolutely new, but are perhaps scared of taking the first couple of steps?
So I think the one thing I want to tell everybody is take the leap of faith. Uh, when you will jump, you will land just fine. There are multiple mistakes you will make on the way. The mistakes are only your learnings. Don't be scared of making mistakes. It's a mistake only if you repeat it. So मैं सबको यही बोलती हूँ, just do it, yeah. There is no perfect school of teaching you anything. The best these schools will also not teach you what your own life experiences will teach you. And don't be scared of making mistakes. I think they are the most valuable assets of your life. बाकी कुछ भी नहीं है.
No, I couldn't agree more. And pretty much as we close this conversation, Sarika, one of the concepts that's fairly emergent today in the world and the times that we live in is the whole concept of empowerment. In that sense, in what ways has being a single mother empowered you or changed your perspectives on life, relationships, and everything beyond?
Arjun, this is the first time anybody has asked me if being a single mother empowered me. It's a completely new perspective. और मैंने भी शायद आज तक कभी ऐसे सोचा नहीं था. People have only asked me how it stopped me from doing things. I think it empowered me because I had the freedom to do, think, behave the way I wanted to. There was nobody stopping me, pulling me back, restricting me, or putting me in a cage of any kind, any whatsoever. And I'm so glad you asked me because suddenly मेरा अपना ही perspective change हो गया. Yeah, so it has been very, very liberating in a way because I was not answerable to anybody. I was always doing whatever came my way, making my own mistakes, learning from them, but nothing to pull me back. And I think that has been the most empowering thing in this entire journey.
I couldn't agree more. And having known you for the 3 years odd that we've now known you, both Richa and I think it just you truly serve to inspire so much in all of us for us to be able to take perhaps a leaf of the pages of your book to be able to carve out and forge a more resolute journey ahead. But Sarika Panchhi, that's pretty much what we have time today on Tipping Point. Truly delighted and privileged to have had this conversation with you. It's been fascinating, and I think we all love you for just who you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arjun. Thank you for not just this chat, but thank you also for changing my perspective towards the end of the conversation. This one will stay with me for a long time.
Thank you. It was lovely having you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Sarika Panchhi in conversation with me on Tipping Point. Stay tuned for more such episodes that an endeavor is to truly bring out conversations about life, transformation, and everything beyond. Thank you. Stay safe. God bless.